I got to this point of discomfort with the way that I was marketing myself where I legitimately felt like I was lying to people.
Welcome to Here's What I Learned. I'm your host, Jackie Hayes, Systems Strategist and Operations Support Specialist. My guest and I share the lessons we've learned about making value-based decisions, leading our teams in new ways, and rejecting traditional business advice. And that advice doesn't align with the life we want to live. If you're a solopreneur or small business owner tired of the same old scale for the sake of scaling way of doing business, then you'll want to stick around and take a listen. So put in those earbuds, get your morning mile started, and enjoy the episode. Today on Here's What I Learned, I'm talking with Rachel Lee. Rachel is an artist, designer, and brand stylist that helps entrepreneurs build a personal brand that authentically reflects who they are. This was a super fun conversation and the best way to wrap up season 7. I hope you enjoy our chat. Rachel, welcome to Here's What I Learned. Before we dive into a deeper conversation, can you answer the question for me? What does it mean to do business your way?
I love this question because a lot of the work that I do is around finding what your uniqueness is, not just with your business, but the way that you do it. For me, I feel like it's so important to do your business in a way that feels right to you because there is no right way to do business. If I were to be honest, from the 5 years that I've been exploring with my own, I went through this process where I started off my business by copying what everyone else was doing for the first few years because I didn't know what I was doing. I looked around and saw other people who on the outside looked like they knew what they were doing and I copied them. I didn't have a business coach in the first few years. I have a background in design. So they don't teach art kids anything about business in art school. And for the first few years, I copied everyone until I got to this point when I realized, I think this was around 2 to 3 years into my business, that what worked for other people doesn't exactly work for me. And that kind of led to a huge, I would say the start of my journey of repackaging my business and doing it in a way that feels right for me. And then realizing that that looks vastly different from what you see out there. So I love this question because it kind of paves the way for our conversation today.
I know that you have just recently started repackaging your services. Can you talk a little bit about that process and specifically why you chose to package it the way you did and how that's going to support you moving forward?
Yes. For context for everyone listening, I provide branding services for my clients. What's very traditional in the branding industry is that it is a very, very long and tedious process where you work one-on-one with your clients, where an engagement can go anywhere from 2 to 6 months. I've had engagements that last over a year and a half. It's actually crazy. Very, very long projects where we go really deep. We spend a lot of time building out a lot of little pieces that would eventually form the picture of your brand. In this process, there's a lot of back and forth where we do the email ping pong thread of death, where I send you something and you send something back and somebody drops the ball. And then 2 months later we go, oh no, we forgot. I'm sorry. Let's pick it up again. And by the time we cross the finish line, everyone is exhausted and you would have needed to wait a very long time before you have something that you can actually use to market your business. So that is the lay of the land when it comes to what's traditional in the branding industry. And I actually worked that way for the first many years of my business. And it not only did some part of that bother me, where it took me a very long time to get my clients the results that they were looking for. And also, just by the time we crossed the finish line, everyone was exhausted. The initial excitement of let's get your new brand out there, it kind of dissipates and we're just like, it feels like beating a dead horse by the time we actually get everything finished. So all of that said, I actually took all of the pieces of knowledge that I gained from all of that experience working with my clients. And I actually recently condensed all of my packages into short, bite-sized 1-week engagements where we literally do not have any emails ping pong back and forth. Everything happens on 2 calls that are kind of bookend the engagement. So we start off our engagement with 1 call. That's kind of where I do all of the information gathering. I have gotten good enough to the point where I can get all of the info I need from you to actually execute on your brand in one 60-minute call. And then we book a time for our follow-up call 1 week after. That's kind of like the front and back cover of our story. And then in the week in between, I actually get busy and I build everything out based on what you shared with me so that by the time we meet for our final call, that's actually where I do the big reveal. I literally call them my reveal parties, where I meet with you and show you your brand for the very first time. I've got this beautiful presentation that I prepare and walk you through in my design software. And I intentionally say this because as we walk through everything and I present your brand to you, we have the opportunity to have a conversation about it. And what do you like? What do you not like? And we get to make live tweaks and adjustments right there on the call as we go. And this is something that is very new that I'm putting out into the world. It's a very different way of working. So instead of doing the email thread back and forth of us talking about, what do you like? Okay, let me tweak this. Do you like this now? And and forth, we actually get to do it live. So it's so much faster. Also, if you don't like doing the email thing, it removes all of that pressure because you just get to tell me what do you like and not like on the call. And I actually get to write copy and design live right in front of you. And that's kind of where the magic is, where it becomes a co-creation, where I want your ideas and I want your feedback. And with that, we actually get to tweak and customize your brand live on the call so that by the end of it, you know exactly what you're going to be walking away with. And that's actually how I managed to squish everything into the 1 week. It's a very, very different way of working. A lot of people often ask me, when it comes to that, they're like, what if I don't like what I see? That's like the biggest and scariest thing for a lot of people. And I always tell people that is totally normal to feel that way. I mean, even for me, I've done this process many times by now. I still get a little anxious. I get those butterflies before every call. But the cool thing is, because it's a co-creation, neither of us have to be nervous because we figure it out on the call. So even if we have a situation where you're like, Rachel, I'm sorry, but I don't know how to feel about any of the stuff that you showed me, I get to say, hey, don't worry about it. Tell me your thoughts. What are you thinking about this? What do you like and what do you not like? And then let's just tweak it and adjust it until we get to a place where you're happy. So that way it creates a space where everyone feels safe. And I could say 100% success rate. Everyone walks away with something that they are 100% happy with. So there's the magic of how I've repackaged all my services.
Now, as you talk about that, I can imagine that there are designers out there who are like, oh my God, no, I don't want to have to the rush of a week, or I don't want to have to do it live while people are watching me. I have my process. I want to do my process behind the scenes. What is it about you that really drew you to this idea of the co-creation of doing it live with them on the call?
What I found, especially after many years of working with people the traditional way, is that sometimes it's very hard to articulate feedback, especially over email. I know everyone communicates differently, and I often find that sometimes it's better when you just have a conversation. And when we're live on the call, I get to watch your face and see how you react when I show you stuff so that I could be like, okay, I saw you made a face there. Tell me what you're thinking, right? I could actually slowly break it down and people could just be super candid with me. I feel like when you start to do the slow revisions back and forth through email, people feel like when they have to sit and type something out, it has to sound a certain way. It has to be politically correct. And they start editing their raw thoughts and emotions so that by the time it gets to me, it might be a filtered version of what they're actually trying to say. So I feel like it's actually better to give people an opportunity to be like, it's okay. Like, you don't even have to say something. Just make a face. Like, let me know how you're feeling so that we can maneuver and create this together. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to our brand, it's not about me and my design preferences. It's about me understanding what you're trying to communicate and then helping you with my technical skills to find a way to communicate that with visuals and or words. So my job is just to act as the translator. I really need you to let me know, how accurate am I? Like, do you need me to move it to the right? Like, oh, do you want me to tweak this thing here or there? Only you will actually know the answer. And I actually need my clients to be there to co-pilot the ship with me because they know the end destination. I just have the skills to fly the plane. I need them to direct me. Otherwise, God knows, we're going to spend a very long time before we figure out where we're landing. I hope that made sense.
Completely, 100%. One
Mm-hmm.
of the things that really stood out to me when we met during a networking call was that you are showing up obviously yourself. For those who can't see you right now, there's a pink wall behind you. You've got the gamer headset on with the ears. And it was like, I loved how it kind of, it didn't fit with the professional or the lifestyle. You're showing up as yourself. What was the process like for you to be like, okay, this is me and this is my vibe, and you need to know it in order to work with me?
This is the very long, winding journey that it's been, where for the first few years that I ran my business, I was completely different. I did the semi-formal, semi-corporate, censoring myself out of my own content sort of deal for a very long time. And I got to this point of discomfort with the way that I was marketing myself, where I legitimately felt like I was lying to people. Like I kid you not. Like maybe for some people, it's easy to do the mask on, mask off thing when you do networking and then you're goofy behind the scenes. But I don't know about you. It's exhausting to put on your professional hat and then take it off and put it on and take it off. And maybe it's just something that I believe in. One of my core values is I want to show up authentically and just be me in any situation. The me that my clients get is the same me as when I'm hanging out with my best friend and spending time with my cat, right? Like I am chill all the way through. And that's part of the experience that I want to create with my brands. And I found myself getting really exhausted presenting myself a certain way that felt very opposite to the way that I am, to the point where I just stopped showing up. Like it got so bad that I stopped networking. I stopped marketing my services because I just felt so bad, like I was lying to people, that I stopped making money as a result of it. And as we know, the moment you stop marketing your business, bad things happen. So I got into that position and things started to, like, my payments started to bounce. Like the things were starting to go into the red. And I knew that if something didn't change, I would just have to pack up my bags and go flip patties at McDonald's. I would stop my business if I didn't figure out a different way of showing up. So I remember it very clearly. It was the start of 2022 when everything was just starting, the lights were shutting off. And I sat myself down and I'm like, all right, girl, this isn't working. If you really believe in what you're doing, you're going to have to figure out a better way of showing up. And even if it might look different, and even if it's really scary, what's the worst thing that can happen? You're not making money right now anyway. So the worst thing that I mean, literally, like the worst thing that can happen is you put yourself out there in the way that feels good to you and nobody buys. You know what? Status quo. There's literally no risk right there. So I literally spent, like, I think it was a month and a half, maybe 2 months. I didn't take any calls. I like shut myself into my room and I was like complete hermit mode. And I sat down and I asked myself the very honest question of, who am I and how do I want the world to see me? Like I kid you not, I had this Google Doc. I set a header there, like, who am I and how do I want the world to see me? And that was it. And I spent like a whole month and a half just brain dumping into that document. I might have to see if I could pull that document up. It's really, really long. But in the process of that discovery, I realized that there were certain parts of who I was that I had been censoring out of my content that I was afraid of showing to the world. But in reality, those were the parts that actually attracted people to working together with me. That was the interesting thing. Like I noticed, for example, one of the things that I was deeply insecure about is the fact that I look a lot younger than my age. People look at me and they're like, hey, did you just graduate from high school? When in reality, I turned 30 in November. I don't look my age, which is a blessing. I mean, from a lady's perspective, that is a blessing. But in the world of business, when you have to go out there and you are selling yourself and your services, almost everyone in the world of business is older than I am. And the fact that I come in looking a certain way makes me feel like I have to work extra hard to prove myself. And I didn't like that feeling. I did it, but it didn't feel like me. So that was one of my deepest insecurities for a very long time. I dressed myself up. I talk more seriously to try to cover up the fact that I look a certain way and I feel a certain way when people meet me. That said, I came to realize after I took a look at the feedback that I received from people people loved working with me because I brought that youthful energy to what I do. A lot of my work has a little bit of punch and glow and sparkle because that's just the way that I am. And I realize that people want to hire a creative that brings that energy or sparkle. Like, what's the point of hiring a designer to work on your stuff if it doesn't pop, if it doesn't feel fun, if it doesn't have that zing to it? And when I realized this, I knew what I needed to do, but it was very scary. Like, when I put myself back out there, I was like, I'm going to burn my professional wardrobe. I am not going to use it anymore. I'm going to go show up to calls in t-shirts. For a while, you can actually see all of my setbacks in my background. I showed up to calls in hats. It was super, super chill. I literally have stuffed animals in my backdrop right here. You see all my collection of things. It's grown over the years, but I started with that and it felt immensely scary. And I thought, oh God, if people don't like me, well, okay, that's okay. I'm not making money right now anyway. So what's the worst that can happen? It turns out it was actually met with great reception. It was the funniest thing. I was deeply scared of feeling rejected, but actually what ended up happening is I felt like people were seeing me for the first time. They were like, oh my God, Rachel, like, welcome back to the internet. Like, it's so good to see you. We've missed you. And I didn't anticipate how powerful this shift was, where suddenly not only was I being seen, but I was feeling seen in a way that felt good to me. I felt good having people see me like this and liking it, not instead of the opposite reaction that I was scared of. So it's been a long journey since then. And I'm excited that this is what I get to help other people with as well, which is showing up online in a way that feels good to you and doing it in a way that doesn't scare off your opportunities. That's what people are scared of. And I can say it's not impossible. There is a way to do it.
I loved how you touched on how that the showing up not completely as yourself or masking really took a lot out of you, and it, took away from your capacity to do work, to market and all of those things. And I think people tend to forget how much energy goes into that when they are masking, and then they don't have as much to show up with. I'm going to imagine that one of the things that came out of all of this is probably better aligned clients. Is that the case?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like before, in the rare instances when I was able to actually attract clients, I often found that they weren't really the right fit, because what you put out is what you're going to be attracting. So if you put yourself out there as kind of formal, kind of serious, most likely you're going to attract more formal and kind of serious clients. And with the way that I am a very personable, very expressive person. And it was very challenging for me in the beginning when I was presenting myself in a formal way to attract clients who were the same. And then realizing, at least from a branding perspective, if you aren't very expressive, I do not have anything to work with when it comes to helping you capture the feeling of your brand, because the feeling it's not there. And I set myself up in a way that was not meant for success. So now I could say that it's gotten so effective to the point where I would have complete strangers randomly reach out to me and book consultation calls for my website. And they would be like, they're like, I love your brand. I really want to work together with you. When can I get started? And I'm like, hey, I'm honored, but I do not know you. I would love to, but it's almost like that weird feeling where people almost feel like they know you and they're bought in, and they like literally know what you ate for lunch over the weekend before you even have a chance to chat with them. It gets kind of creepy sometimes when you do your brand and you communicate it well enough. But that's actually the magic, when you automatically have people saying yes to you and being bought in before even your first conversation. It's really magical when you get to that point. It takes a lot of groundwork, but honestly, it's definitely worth putting the time and energy to making that happen.
Yeah, I think most of us don't realize, or don't often admit, how much we hire somebody based off their vibe, like how well we connect with them. And that happens from, seeing something on Instagram, whether it's a story, or maybe they see some of the work you've done for others and they're like, oh, wow, she could really capture what I'm trying to capture in my brand. And so being authentic to who you are just makes it easier for them to connect with you in that way.
Exactly. It's about forming, it's about having a Me Too moment. And I often find that people forget this really important fact that business is just a vehicle for people to help people. And when you don't know how to do the people thing properly, that's where business becomes really hard because yes, business is very technical. There's numbers, there's strategies. It's a game where you need to understand the rules, but it's still a game you play with people. And if you don't understand how to connect with people, how to meet them where they're at, and actually, just be human about the way that you support them, then business does become very challenging. But I like to say that with a lot of the work that I do, it's about humanizing branding. It's about humanizing the way that we do businesses. And the more that we humanize it, I feel like the more fun we get to have because the people that I support, at least with my work, my clients they all become my friends. Like we've spent so much time together. I'm like, yeah, like, of course, I know you. Like I support you wholeheartedly. The work that we're doing is making the world a better place. Like it becomes more fun that way.
To shift a little bit back to the doing business your way, if I'm remembering correctly, I saw an Instagram post or story that you had put up about the ears on your headset and how they play into how you work. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. What's funny is the headset that I have for people who are just tuning in, they're these giant pink headphones with light up cat ears on the top. If anyone wants to know, they're the Razer Kitty Kraken headphones. I love them to pieces. I actually recently just added them to my repertoire of knickknacks that make Zoom fun for me at the start of this year. And I've come to love these headphones so much because it actually helps me step into a specific frame of mind before to prepare me to get into conversations with people. And I'll give a little bit of background for this. I The work that I do requires me to be very, very social. When in reality, I am a social introvert. I come off as very extroverted, but my social battery runs out really, really quickly. And after a few consecutive Zoom calls, I promise you, I am lying on the couch staring up at the ceiling and needing time to recharge while hugging my cat. Like that is very much me. I love people, but it takes a lot out of me because every conversation that I'm in, I fully invest in. I don't hold anything back. As a result, you know how there are days when you show up to work and you already feel like a potato before anything starts, before you open your inbox, before you get on that first call, you're like, I'm ready to go back to bed. I don't want to be here today. I have many of those days. And I know, though, especially from a branding perspective, the people who are on my calendar that day, they put time to be with me. And as a result, I want to be committed to showing up the way that I would want to show up for myself. I want to give my 100%. And the good way for me to do that, part of my getting ready ritual is actually putting my headset on because in my mind, it's almost like this character where I'm like, all right, this is the Rachel that's going to show up and this is who this character is, like, XYZ. It's kind of like when Superman rips his shirt and he like steps into gear, right? It's like it's Superman time. For me, it's like it's kitty cat time. And it just helps me get into the right frame of mind so that I'm able to show up at 100% even on the days when I feel like a vegetable. So
I love that idea. It's so often you hear about the, dress for the job that you want, or, make sure you put on your makeup before you start your day. It'll make it, but those are very, well, they don't fit everybody. Not everybody, wants to do that. And so I love that you found this unique way for you to make it more manageable to be on Zoom as much as many of us service providers are. And I think that's really inspiring for others. In fact, now I'm like, okay, how can I make my Zoom calls a little bit more helpful and not something that I dread on a regular basis? I love the connections that I make, but just like you, I'm all in. And so then I'm exhausted at the end of the day. It can be a really good exhausted because it was a great experience, but it's still very exhausting. So
Absolutely. I like to say for every person, what you do, the things that you bake into your ritual will be very much unique to you. One thing that I've started to do is before I get onto my calls every day, I make like my favorite concoction of milk tea and I like to sip it. It helps my brain boot up. It's actually less of the caffeine and just more of whenever I get the flavor of that specific tea in my mouth, somehow it triggers this thing in my mind where it's like, all right, I'm relaxed now. I am chill enough to actually just be fully present instead of coming in with crazy, hectic energy. So, whatever it is, if you have like fuzzy call socks, if you've got like specific headphones, if you've got like certain, like a setting for your lights, so whatever it is, I definitely encourage you to create an environment that supports you in showing up as the version of you that you want to show up as every day, even when you're not at your best.
Rachel, what is something that you of today would tell yourself at the start of your business?
Oh man, there are so many things. Uh, I feel like one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, it actually ties into the very first question that you asked, is there will be a lot of people out there who have reached success with their business. And it is very tempting to copy them exactly verbatim, the footsteps that they follow. And they will probably sell you a whole bunch of courses and programs that also align with that. And you will spend a lot of money. In hindsight, as somebody who's invested heavily in my business, in a lot of the learning, both for the business side and for personal development, I've come to realize that only you will actually know the answers to the path that you need to be taking. And you need to be very picky about who you take advice from. Because in the earlier years, I invested a lot in my business and I learned a lot of great advice from a lot of awesome people. But that advice was not either applicable to my specific business or I learned advice that wasn't applicable to my specific stage of business. So I learned skills that would be fantastic when I get to a certain point. But when I was at square one, it wasn't something that I could have used. So I feel like from a constant learner's perspective, yes, always be investing in your learning, but also pay close attention to who you listen to and what you choose to apply, because not everything is going to be the right fit for you just because some person XYZ has like hit the 6 or 7 figure mark with their business. It's important to take a look at who it is that you're learning from, the success that they've achieved. Take a look and see if that's the type of business that you want to be running, if that's the lifestyle you want to be living, but most importantly, who that person is, because their values will steer the way that they run their business. And if it doesn't align with your values, do not listen to them. There might be good advice from a business standpoint, but ultimately, the way that they built their business is shaped by their beliefs. And if you do not align with that, it could cause you to go down a path where you build your business in a way that just doesn't work for you and the way that you want to be showing up in the world. So just be cautious and intentional about who you choose to listen to and where you get your advice from as you're building your business.
That is great advice, Rachel. Where can the listeners find you?
I am all over the internet, but my favorite place to hang out is definitely Instagram. That's where all the eye candy is. So connect with me on Instagram. My handle is Rachel T.Y. Lee, RACHEL TYLEE. But I'm also on LinkedIn as well, just because that's where most of the business people hang out. My name is just spelled Rachel Lee, but because there's a lot, the handle at the very end is the same, Rachel T.Y. Lee, in case you need to search me up specifically.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Here's What I Learned. You can find the show notes and transcripts at jackiehayes.online/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to leave a review and follow the show. Be sure to find me on Instagram at JackieHayes_OBM and let me know what you learned from this episode. Catch you next time on Here's What I Learned.